We had the best time doing the initial breakdown of the body language and behavior in this video, and we decided we'd revisit some of our favorite moments from it.
He's Donald Trump, okay, because he used to belong to their side. You understand? He used to belong to that illuminated group that I told you about, which is an elite group, okay, of individuals which run the whole country. All right?
All right.
Basically, what I did you tell him did you explain to him about the message? Or
No, please. Elaborate.
On Thursday, turning to Friday, basically, I went to Donald Trump. I went through the gates. I took I jumped the fence and I took the American flag, I put it in the front desk and I blew the chandelier. Basically, what I did that for is to transmit a statement to the American people and to Donald Trump that we're not accepting any more corruption and abuse from their system of France. Okay? Donald's still blind because he thinks that he let Hillary off the hook and she's okay. You understand what I'm saying?
I'm trying, okay. Keep going.
It ain't like that. The CIA and them, they want to do the same thing that he did to JFK. Okay?
Alright.
Why? Because they want the United States to fall. They've already been creating a state of chaos and confusion in the United States, and they want the United States to fall. Donald was against their agenda and won the presidency, okay? He did get help from Russia. He did get help from the Saudis. He also got help from a lot of Republicans in here, which is the electoral college vote. And he got a lot of support from Republican people, okay? The elections, they weren't fair, but he wanted the electoral college vote.
Right.
Which is the Republican vote, basically, got him through, okay? He didn't get the popular vote, okay?
Right. I hear you. Keep
So basically, the interior, he made it. He's president-elect by the electoral college. So he made it. The situation is that he still hasn't kicked out the corruption from the system. He's letting them stay due to money, basically, because they all like making money. That's why they're all billionaires, etc. So there's only there's select few that run the country. Okay.
All right, Mark, what do you got?
Yeah, okay. This time around, maybe not so much on body language. We will have some, but maybe not so much. I'm really interested in the stories that are being told here, the narratives, because in my view, environment is part of what pushes us towards the behaviors that we have. And part of our environment is the stories around us from other people and also the ones that are going on in our mind. Obviously, there are stories, there are narratives which are true, and there are ones that aren't so true. We'll have a look at what we might think are true narratives here and not so true, but certainly the stories being told are part of everybody's environment, certainly in these videos. So you've got a storyteller here, and he is very matter of fact, I would say, very matter of fact around this. Now, does that mean that he's talking about fact just because he's matter of fact? Well, I would say that in this first video, we don't get a lot of first-hand testimony. That's when somebody is talking about something where they were actually there, they actually saw it. We've got a lot of second and third-hand testimony of like, well, you know, this person says, or this person says about this. The guy doesn't often say, look, this is second and third-hand testimony. He kind of reports stuff as if he knows it to be factual. However, there is a moment here which is true first-hand testimony, which is I went to Donald Trump.
I went to Donald Trump. I went through the gates.
He's not talking about Donald Trump personally, he's talking about the hotel. I went to Donald Trump, and at that point, he leans forward and he puts his hands in as a barrier in front of him. Now, often we talk about barriers and we might say, okay, somebody's barriering, that might be a bit of a problem there. Greg, you might often say kind of they're taking holy ground, they're creating space around them. In this case here, we know he went to Donald Trump. We have film of him, video of him at Donald Trump. He was picked up and I believe arrested at Donald Trump. So we know First-hand testimony, he's telling the truth about something, and he barriers there. Now, why does he barrier? I'm not going to go into that, but it's important. First-hand testimony of a fact, he barriers. We're going to see that later on when he barriers around some very tricky stuff that he's talking about. So interesting to have that there. But the narrative here about Trump, the person, is Trump used to be Illuminati. He used to be somebody who was powerful and under the side of bad in this narrative, and now he's on the good side. So Trump used to be bad, now he's good. We have a world here where the guy here says there is good and bad, and Trump was bad, but now he's good. We've got what we call a Hegelian, almost kind of Marxist narrative here. You got bad and you got good, and if you're bad, you're part of the elite and you have power, and if you're good, you're against the elite who have power. So it's pretty kind of Marxist rhetoric going on here. That's all I got on that one. Greg, what do you got?
At the Behavior Panel, our goal is to help you see behind the surface, to spot deception and analyze the true intent behind people's words. It is a mission that I personally feel strongly about, especially in today's bias and overwhelming media landscape. And mainstream media tends to blur the truth and make it really hard to see through the chaos. This is why all of us are proud to have Ground News as a sponsor. They help readers look beyond the mainstream narratives and uncover the patterns in the way that today's news really spins and frames the issues that are going on, or even just fails to cover them in the first place. Like they don't even talk about it. So for every story that you read on their app or their website, you get instant access to every outlet that's reporting on that thing. On top of that, there's a breakdown of each source's political bias. For instance, you get this report of how subjective their reporting tends to be, and if they're independently owned, or they funded by corporations or governments, or are they getting their money from somewhere that's influencing what they're saying to you. So Ground News really helps you see the subtle ways that the media can very heavily shape our public opinion. I'm not even immune to it after studying all this psychology stuff, and it's good to be able to see behind the curtain. I'm actually in the process of writing a book. It's almost done on media brainwashing, and I think they're one of the most practical solutions that I have ever seen. So check it out by scanning this QR code or go to ground.news/TBP. Our viewers get 40% off unlimited access, whether you subscribe for yourself or if it's a gift for somebody. Ground News is independent and subscriber funded, not by any special interests. So by subscribing, you're not only just getting a great product, you're directly supporting our work here at the Behavior Panel.
Yeah, Mark, I'm with you 100%. Just because somebody barriers does not mean that they are hiding something. It could be another reason. Maybe it's because this is a hot point and I need to share with you, and I'm not sure you're going to perceive it. We can't read that. We can't read the fact that when he tells this fact, he does lean in. Let's talk about a couple of things. He's going to tell a bunch of crazy stories, a bunch of things that you might think, why don't they ask more questions? This is the Secret Service. They have a job. Their job is to find out, did this guy act alone? Is there someone else? This is not me interested in his story. This is not storytelling. So they're going to come in and they're going to have intelligence collection requirements and a checklist, mental or physical, who knows. And just to give you an example, the first Gulf War, I go in and we went into the skiff. There were three of us together, and they gave us decks of intelligence collection requirements. Now, you can't carry them with you. You just had to familiarize yourself as much as you could. And that's the way forward deployed folks work. Guys in a cage will reference a number in a specific intelligence collection requirement and then write a report about it. And then they'll share that stuff with other people via systems today, via systems even back then in the 80s. They would share information with these folks. So if they're looking for something a guy talked about, they'll come and talk to him too. That makes sense to you. They're not going to spend a lot of time on that kind of thing. It makes us less interested in gossip and more likely to say that's hearsay and annotate it that way. Hey, Chase, I thought you'd probably have something to say about him throwing my Illuminati sign because he's constantly doing what I do when I do Maslow. No, it's not some kind of a conspiracy. He uses the word Let me give you a tool, really simple tool. There are 5 pieces of body language I try to get people to get their head around. Gestures, just a sign that everybody understands. Illustrators, when you punctuate your thoughts. Regulators, when you're controlling the conversation. Adapters, when you're releasing nervous energy. And barriers, when you put something between us. Of those 5, 3 are used in driving home your point typically. Illustrators, regulators, and gestures are trying to send your message. When you're uncomfortable because your brain knows that the story you're telling is not the story it knows, then the other 2 become more prevalent, typically, those being barriers and adapters. So if you look at it this way, as a targeting tool only, when the 3s outweigh the 2s, when meaning you got more of gestures, illustrators, and regulators than adapters and barriers, you're probably okay. When you start seeing more of those other 2, of the barriers and the adapters, it's a targeting thing. So let's keep our eyes on that, pay attention to him as he goes forward. But this guy doesn't have a rational mind. We can already start to see things. I interrogated a guy one time and had to use an interpreter. His Arabic was all messed up. And I'll never forget that he said he had his head in a shaking machine. I don't know what that was, but he sure acted like he had his head in a shaking machine. His sentences did not go together. It was like a schizophrenic talking to a schizophrenic. But that doesn't mean he didn't see something valuable. So these guys have to listen, no matter how crazy the story is, no matter how outlandish and broken it is, because there's a possibility that there's something in there. Mark, I'll go one last thing. We know that he has read some of the stuff and heard some of the stuff on YouTube. Otherwise, he would know it's not the electrical college. Chase, what do you got?
It may be electric, Greg. For all you know. But I totally agree with you, man. These disjointed thoughts and the belief in being part of a bigger mission to expose some kind of corruption point towards a possible delusional thing going on here. He mixes real political events with conspiracy theories, like his references to the CIA, JFK, and Trump. And from a psychological perspective, this kind of behavior can stem from stress, sleep deprivation, or psychiatric conditions like psychosis, bipolar disorder, even drug use or neurological issues can affect a person and have them start connecting dots that don't really connect. And from a cognitive standpoint, there's rapid shifts in these topics. There's no logical connection. There's a fixation on the conspiracy theories and being persecuted. There's a belief in having a critical role in exposing corruption or being part of this big significant event. So now we have some grandiosity maybe showing itself. And this could be something as simple as cortisol, like stress hormones can cause impulsive, erratic behavior. There could be schizophrenia, bipolar mania, or other psychoses can result in some of these thinking and fragmented speech patterns that we're seeing here. Stimulants, hallucinogens can do this, but I think what we're seeing here is not acute. So a lot of these things where you see this happen in somebody, those are acute things that happen suddenly and they're not chronic or what we call subacute. Sleep deprivation can also cause this stuff. And the gesture that we see here is forming this circle, this Illuminati symbol that Greg uses all the time to talk about Maslow's pyramid while secretly saying hello to his Illuminati brethren on YouTube. I think this conveys some precision, some control, some emphasis is what he's trying. Like he's framing an idea of something that he thinks is really significant. And he uses the words, I think, elite secret group, I think. And I think this could be his way of trying to give physical form to an abstract idea. So people use their hands all the time to just reinforce what they're talking about, especially when they're talking about something that they see as symbolic or important. So the diamond shape is sometimes linked to these conspiracy theories like Illuminati. So he might be unconsciously mimicking a symbol there that he associates with power or secrecy. And that could help him to make his beliefs feel more real and tangible and concrete. That's all I got there, Scott.
All right. Well, when he starts talking about what he's calling the illuminate.
That illuminated group that I told you about?
Right out of the gate, that's a red flag for me. Anytime anybody brings up the Illuminati and don't even say it right, that makes me go, do what, dude? So, and I think these guys are doing a great job, the interrogators, the Secret Service guys, of holding back and just listening, just let this guy puke up all this information for them. So I think they're doing a great job of, because that's tough. When somebody starts down that road, you're going to go, well, hang on a minute, man, what are you talking about? They don't do that because they know they need all the information they can possibly get from him. So instead of going back to the why he's there, which is the main thing, the main point of this is to find out what was going on and how he ended up in the situation he is now on that Friday. So his illustrators are strong and they're fluid and they're big because he's confident with what he has to say. And so we know that's something that's common with someone who's confident, because that's why we see politicians doing that. We see them using when they used to use the pointer thing, now they do this or they'll do this. So it's not as aggressive looking for him. Then he slaps the table. Right. And this lets us know as well, hey, man, I got something to tell you. Here it is. And he does that and scoots forward. Now, he uses a face that when I first saw this face, I knew what it was on this video. But one of the first times I saw it, I didn't understand what I was seeing. And I'd been asked to take a look at a person, and I had video of it. And I couldn't figure out what was happening. And this was like 10 years ago. So I called up Greg and said, hey, man, I'm seeing something. I don't know what's going on with this guy's face. I sent it to Greg. He looked at it and said, oh, okay, here it is. It's his teaching face. And that's what this guy's doing. He's trying to teach these guys what's happening. There's a specific look you get for some people when you start teaching people something. And that's what this guy's got as he's telling this. So I'd never put that together and had a name for it, a teaching face, but that's what it was. And it comes in these specific at times when someone's telling you the way it is or what's happening, and let me explain to you what's going on. That's why we get that slap on the table and he scoots in like that. Now, his cadence speeds up, his voice tone and volume get just a little bit louder. But again, I think that comes with confidence in what he's saying. So these are all really important, because as wacko is what he says sounds, I think this cat believes this, man. I think he's in. I think there's no question for him. He believes this stuff to be true. Then he leans back and he folds his hands, and and clearly and fluidly he says the things he's talking about sound real. If you're listening to something, if he was talking about anything else, you could possibly take it for reality. So I think it's a combination of one or two things happening here. Number one, this is something, I think, Greg, you were saying the same thing. It's something that he's heard and he's repeating, or his brain is blasted and he's talking about something that he believes to be real that isn't real. And we could talk about schizophrenia, paranoid schizophrenic, which at this point I'm seeing hints of that, in my opinion. May not be, maybe just fine. But it looks to me like might be dealing with someone with paranoid schizophrenia. That's all I got. We good?
Yeah.
All right.
He's Donald Trump, okay, because he used to belong to their side. You understand? He used to belong to that illuminated group that I told you about, which is an elite group, okay, of individuals which run the whole country. All right?
All right.
Basically, what I did you tell him did you explain to him about the message? Or
Please elaborate.
On Thursday, turning to Friday, basically, I went to Donald Trump. I went through the gates. I took I jumped the fence, and I took the American flag, I put it in the front desk, and I blew the chandelier. Basically, what I did that for is to transmit a statement to the American people and to Donald Trump that we're not accepting any more corruption and abuse from their system of France. Okay? Donald's still blind because he thinks that he let Hillary off the hook and she's okay. You understand what I'm saying?
I'm trying. Okay, keep going.
It ain't like that. The CIA and them, they want to do the same thing that he did to JFK. Okay?
All right.
Why? Because they want the United States to fall. They've already been creating a state of chaos and confusion in the United States, and they want the United States to fall. Donald was against their agenda and won the presidency, okay? He did get help from Russia. He did get help from the Saudis. he also got help from a lot of Republicans in here, which is the electoral college vote. And he got a lot of support from Republican people. Okay. The elections, yeah, they weren't fair, but he wanted the electoral college vote.
Right.
Which is the Republican vote, basically, got him through, okay? He didn't get the popular vote, okay?
Right. I hear you. Keep
So basically, the Interior, he made it. He's president-elect by the Electoral College. So he made it. The situation is that he still hasn't kicked out the corruption from the system. He's letting them stay due to money, basically, because they all like making money. That's why they're all billionaires, etc. So there's only there's select few that run the country. Okay. Okay. How do I know this?
Yeah, that's what I want to know. How do you know this?
Do you know Sean Combs?
Puff Daddy?
Yeah.
P. Diddy, whatever you call himself these days. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, he's part of what's called the Boule. The Boule is a branch of the Illuminati.
Okay.
It's the black people. Okay. I'm from Africa, so I'm not a racist. Okay. You're my brother, so I like black people.
Okay.
My mom, I was raised by an African woman in my house. Okay. She was just a servant, but she was she took care of me.
Right.
So I love black people.
Okay.
I had settlement with Sean. Okay. And he belongs to that agenda. That's why he's so famous. They land all the contracts. It's his attorneys, which are Mark Garagos and Ben Mercedes. Ben Mercedes worked for Bad Boy Entertainment for 4 years and worked for Hillary Rodman for 5. Okay? When I take Sean the threat of death on me, okay? I don't have it, but I can make it available under secrecy. That means that I wouldn't be liable because I don't want to be getting framed for anything. Okay.
Right.
I had sex with Cassie and Sean. Basically, he would tell me what to do with Cassie. I had like 15 encounters, and I heard a lot of business. Because what they would do is Sean talks a lot on the phone and on the TV with speakers and stuff, and I was like a sex slave. Okay. For them, that's what I was. That's all right? I caught herpes, and I came back and I sued him for the herpes and won. But Mark Garagos and Ben Mercedes were his attorneys, okay? And Christopher Leon's here was my attorney. They asked me to turn in that, which was the video recording, and I did so. They gave it back to me accidentally, and it's possible I threw everything out. It's possible I can produce a copy.
Gotcha.
It's possible. I'm not sure. Now, how does this lead towards Donald Trump?
So, in cases where delusions are entrenched like this, especially when they're reinforced by social media, it's important to approach this really softly, which is what the interrogators are doing right here. If you challenge somebody's beliefs directly, you're going to trigger defensive reactions. And he's very convicted and convinced of what's transpiring in the world. The interviewers here did exactly the right thing in just allowing him to speak openly about everything that's going on. And I will say there's a difference in his behavior when he goes into talking about his activities with Diddy. He puts his legs down, he sits up straight and addresses the officers directly. When he's talking about his actions and things that he knows about, there is not an indicator of deception that I could find. And I watched this over a dozen times to find a cluster here that would indicate some kind of deception. And I don't see any. And it's different. He's speaking about personal knowledge differently than all the other stuff, too. All right, Greg, what do you got?
Yeah, so funny, Chase, you say that because I put a note in my own notes.
That's sprinkles.
I put sprinkles. I put a note in my own notes that said rewatch, And I did it about 4 times too, looking for the same thing. So let's talk about how we can tell when he's being deceptive. Let's go back to that 3, 2, and 2, 3, right? 3 are the positive things, the gestures, the illustrators, and the regulators. The negatives are adapters and barriers. When he starts talking about this woman, when he makes a mistake and says something fairly racist,
it's the black people. Okay, I'm from Africa, so I'm not a racist.
you see him get uncomfortable, very uncomfortable. He's aware that his mouth is saying something that it shouldn't. You hear a cadence shift. You see him barrier his legs. He crosses. He adapts at his clothing. He starts rubbing and pushing on the clothing. And then he barriers at his abdomen. The first time we've seen it, he actually closes up like this. So something is wrong there. And then he says, she was just a servant. You see all that. He's uncomfortable. And then he goes back to pontificating with his right eyes, over to the right with his eyes. And he changes in cadence. And then, Mark, you said it in the beginning. When he told us about shooting up this hotel, he put his hands together in what we might call a barrier. And he does exactly the same thing here. Chase, to your point, I look really hard for clusters. That he could be lying, that he's being deceptive. Didn't see a lot of that. What we do see is him telling them the story, and they're indifferent to it because it's not within their intelligence collection requirements. They're probably making mental note. They're videotaping it, so it's there. That would get pushed out to bulletins in my world where we would say, hey, this guy claims he did this. Will that matter? It's really interesting. I always say this to you guys. You've heard me say it 100 times. If you want to know what bad guys do, what kind of shit bad guys do, you got to talk to bad guys to find out. Because bad guys don't hang out with good guys and tell them what they're doing. So just because a guy has schizoid kind of personality, just because he can't rationalize and put thoughts together, doesn't mean he did not also do something that might be important at a later date. So we poke and we prod and we get as much information as we can, and we listen to everything. And police officers have to listen to a lot of things that don't make any difference in their story. That's where you pick up source leads and you follow them. Let me give you a data point. Read this morning on NBC Miami that within a few months of his divorce, he invested over $700,000 in real estate. He was $14,000 in the red when he went to divorce court, but a few months later invested $700,000 in real estate. That's interesting. Mark, might mean something, might not, might be in between. What do you got to say?
Hey, Sprinkles, will you put the horn back on, please? That was the bet.
I kept poking. It's outside the frame.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't bother me. There you go. Thanks, Patches. There it is.
This has become way more interesting than even I thought. Chase started off with the unicorn.
Who did?
Oh, sorry, Sprinkles. Started off with the unicorn horn. Of course, you see that on one side of the banner of the Order of the Garter. He then went for a rose. Of course, you see that at the bottom of the seal for the Order of the Garter. And then, accidentally, or did he? The lion comes in. Of course, the lion rampant on the other side of the Order of the Garter. Of course, an Illuminati organization. Evil on him, that evil thinks, as the motto of the Order of the Garter is. So you see how we make you may think, Mark, what do you know? As I was going on before, what do you know of the Illuminati? Well, it's pattern. It's just patterns. And so why would I have that? Why would I have that if I knew nothing? And some of you will recognize that and some of you won't. And some of you will go, why do you have that, Mark? And the story could be more extreme than you can even possibly imagine. I'll leave it to all your imaginations as to why I would know all those signifiers of the Order of the Garter and have that pack of cards on hand. But here's a signal that I see, just as you've all seen.
I had sex with Cassie and Sean.
And he leans forward and barriers just as he did when he was saying he went to the Trump Hotel.
Turning to Friday, basically, I went to Donald Trump.
It's the same behaviors, and so it's looking extremely probable given all the behaviors that we've got there. Given all the behaviors, it's very different from the other storytelling that he's doing. Very, very different when he leans forward on that. But then he talks about the video and the copy of the video, and he gave the video and they accidentally gave it back to him.
They gave it back to me accidentally, and it's possible, like, I threw everything out as possible. I can produce a copy.
Okay, that's an interesting accident for lawyers who wanted to get hold of it. You know, I would kind of say, well, if that was an accident, that probably wasn't an accident from those two lawyers. That doesn't sound an accident to me. That sounds like if that actually happened, that's purposeful. But I don't know. I mean, but it's more problematic because we now get lots of before and after that, lots of adapters on his gown there. I mean, we haven't really talked about the fact that he's wearing a medical gown in this.
He's just been shot. He's just been shot.
It's like, you know, it's an interesting look, isn't it? Medical
and
gown.
He could be Jason Statham in the hospital gown from the Transporter movie, or Crank. Maybe it was Crank.
It's one of those which I'm sure must have come from 12 Monkeys as well. I'm sure it all harks back to Terry Gilliam, Monty Python, and Cambridge University. Of course, Cambridge University, where the elite are trained to become part of the Illuminati. It's all going back in that direction as far as my little red threads go.
See what happens when you dwell on things that are fed to you.
Scott, what do you got on this one?
All right. Well, he opens up that table slap again.
Okay, how do I know this?
Yeah, that's what I want to know. How do you know this?
And then he moves into talking about other famous people. He's bringing everybody in on this. No matter what the subject is, no matter what happens, he's bringing in all these famous people to be involved in this. You could say, what do you think about Kierkegaard's notion of identity? And he'd say, well, I tell you what, damn, Kierkegaard showed up over Jay-Z's house. We went over to Diddy's house. And you know what happened then? He'd have a way to work him into whatever the story was or whatever was going on. So I think we're dealing with a paranoid schizophrenic here. That's what it looks like to me. That could be, I'm just my opinion. Because he's got everybody involved. And then he goes, when he's talking about how he might be able to get information or might be able to get the tapes back because they accidentally gave them to him, it goes back to my theory. Maybe he's trying to work a deal here or say, I've got something that I may be able to get out of some of this with. I may be able to make a deal and get out of trouble.
Okay, how do I know this?
Yeah, that's what I want to know. How do you know this?
Do you know Sean Combs?
Puff Daddy?
Yeah.
P. Diddy, whatever you call himself these days. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, he's part of what's called the Boule. The Boule is a branch of the Illuminati.
Okay.
And it's the black people. Okay. I'm from Africa, so I'm not a racist.
Okay.
Okay, you're my brother, so I like black people.
Okay.
My mom, I was raised by an African woman in my house. Okay. She was just a servant, but she was she took care of me.
Right.
So I love black people.
Okay.
I had settlement with Sean, okay? And he belongs to that agenda. That's why he's so famous. They land all the contracts. It's his attorneys, which are Mark Garagos and Ben Mercedes. Ben Mercedes worked for Bad Boy Entertainment for 4 years and worked for Hillary Rodman for 5, okay? When I take Sean the threat of death on me, okay? I don't have it, but I can make it available under secrecy. That means that I wouldn't be liable because I don't want to be getting framed for anything, okay?
All right.
I had sex with Cassie and Sean. Basically, he would tell me what to do with Cassie. I had like 15 encounters, and I heard a lot of business. Because what they would do is Sean talks a lot on the phone and on the TV with speakers and stuff, and I was like a sex slave, okay? For them, that's what I was. That's all right? I caught herpes, and I came back and I sued him for the herpes and won. But they did. Mark Garagos and Ben Mercedes were his attorneys, okay? And Christopher Leon's here was my attorney. They asked me to turn in that, which was the video recording, and I did so. They gave it back to me accidentally, and it's possible, I threw everything out, it's possible I can produce a copy.
Gotcha.
It's possible, I'm not sure. Now, how does this lead towards Donald Trump? Basically, what happens is the following. The hip-hop agenda is an agenda to move drugs all over the United States. They move, you need to inform DEA. They move all the dope, all the dope on private jets, which don't get screened by
customs?
By DEA. Inside the United States, okay? They move what's called high-grade powder, MDMA. They move cocaine, and they move liquid cocaine in their bottles too. Okay, so they put the liquid cocaine in the bottles and they move it. I've seen the liquid cocaine, I've drank it myself, having sex with Diddy and Cassie. Okay, it's not good. He drinks it all the time. Alright, he calls it G-juice, but it's liquid cocaine.
Alright.
How do I know there's a conspiracy against Trump? Because it's in the Illuminati card deck. He should look at it for himself.
But let me bring you back to Thursday night, Friday morning.
Sure.
I mean, how did all of this? I think I better understand what you're saying. But what I want to know is, how did that prompt you? How did that make you do what you did that night?
Well, we're getting to a point that his assassination is coming.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because it's an agenda they're perpetrating on the media and the news. Example, Madonna is a client of Mercedes, Ben Mercedes.
Mm-hmm.
He has her go on public TV and say, oh, someone should, I thought so many times of going up and blowing up the White House.
Gotcha.
Okay, they gave her that little message. That little message is Hillary's message, okay? Because Hillary sends it to Garagos, and Garagos gives it to Mercedes, and they give it to
Gotcha.
the
Yeah,
dog.
yeah.
Okay, now
I get all of that.
you're gonna need an internet so I can show you. If I show you the website, you're just gonna go like, oh.
All right, Greg, what do you got?
Yeah, he's getting back to facts now. Anytime we see him get to facts, he's different than he is when he's pontificating. Pontificating, he's smooth, he's big three. Whenever he's telling facts, except for a couple of times, he goes into that barrier of his hands and that kind of things. I think he's likely full of it on a few of these counts. But when he's supposedly factual, his baseline deviation is massive in this case where it isn't in others. For example, the Madonna thing. Suddenly Madonna's an operative.
They gave her that little message. That little message is Hillary's message, okay?
He's ridiculous here. He's ridiculous when it should be factual. Unlike the Diddy story and unlike the I shot up the Trump story. It's a very different approach. Chase, what do you got?
I will say that nobody would have believed it in the day about Julia Childs,
That's
Hey,
true.
Lamar.
who was a
That's
CIA
true.
operative and had a cooking show on TV and wrote, I think, the best-selling cookbook of all time.
Mm-hmm.
So it's still stunning to see that he was talking about an attempt on Trump's life years before it took place. I've at least got to give him that. And he's also talking about things that we're all starting to see that Diddy is now alleged to have been deeply involved with back in the day. So I don't know how to say this, really, but I think there's a lot of truth being talked about in all these videos, but it's hard to see where the dots don't really connect. And he's making connections and drawing these conclusions about sweeping narratives and agendas that just don't make much sense at all. I do think individual elements are truthful. And I think it's just like one of those TV shows where the red yarn is the part that have the biggest question mark about. So psychologically, it's a case of somebody making connections that aren't really there, or maybe they are, but none of us can see it. But when people think there's an underlying agenda, and sometimes they're not entirely wrong about that, it becomes easy to start seeing every unrelated event, because he could be wrong about 20% of this. And then that says, oh, I've got some ground truth here. So now everything is interrelated. So I think he's convinced he's uncovered these hidden truths, and his confidence comes from his belief in what he's seeing. The problem is, I think some of these things probably might not be worth looking into. Not everything fits so perfectly and neatly together. And just as a reminder, if all of these people are involved in this kind of secret operation, our own government can't even keep secrets very well. Every agency has leaks. So I'll leave it at that. Mark, what do you got?
Yeah. Look, it gets a little bit muddy for me. Like I would have this piece about the liquid cocaine, Diddy and Cassie.
They move liquid cocaine in their bottles too. Okay, so they put the liquid cocaine in the bottles and they move it. I've seen the liquid cocaine, I've drank it myself, having sex with Diddy and Cassie. Okay, it's not good.
On that, I would have liked to have seen something more certain in terms of his body language on that. It's muddy now on this one. He's soothing, I think, with his ID, his hospital ID bracelet there. And so I can't, what I'd really like to see is that real confirmation of this again. I don't see it. I'm a little upset by that because I'd like to see it on that. They would start to have a really good pattern of veracity to it, but it's just not there for me. Doesn't negate what we've seen before. It just, I think, to what everybody's been saying so far, it starts to get a bit muddy after a while and you don't know what's latching up to one thing, and stories are now, edging into each other and it's a bit fuzzy. And look, I think what he does here at the end, which is great, is say, look, I got to show you the internet. I got to show you the internet.
You're gonna need an internet so I can show you. If I show you the website, you're just gonna go like, oh.
Which is that thing of, if you could take in the data like I took in the data, you would understand. You would believe this. It is that thing of people when they go, well, just go and read the internet. It's like, no. You need to convince me right now, or you need to show me the evidence, and the internet isn't necessarily evidence. Some of the internet may have evidence, some of it may not, but just saying, hey, go and look on the internet, it's all there, that's not really fact. So, this video here doesn't really do what I would like it to do. Scott, what do you got on this one?
I agree with you completely. He's just ranting. This is pretty much the same stuff we've seen up to this point. They try to corral him and get him back to the point of why he's here. That doesn't work, and he just keeps going. And not a lot's changed with anything so far. So I won't rant on any further than that. We good?
Yeah.
I'm going to give you that one, Greg. That was nice.
Bullshit.
Basically, what happens is the following. The hip-hop agenda is an agenda to move drugs all over the United States. You need to inform the DEA. They move all the dope, on private jets, which don't get screened by
customs,
by DEA, inside the United States. Okay, they move what's called high-grade powder MDMA. They move cocaine, and they move liquid cocaine in their bottles too. Okay, so they put the liquid cocaine in the bottles and they move it. I've seen the liquid cocaine, I've drank it myself, having sex with Diddy and Cassie. Okay, it's not good. He drinks it all the time. Alright, he calls it G but it's liquid cocaine.
Alright.
How do I know there's a conspiracy against Trump? Because it's in the Illuminati card deck. He should look at it for himself.
But let me bring you back to Thursday night, Friday morning.
Sure.
I mean, how did all of this? I think I better understand what you're saying. But what I want to know is, how did that prompt you? How did that make you do what you did that night?
Well, we're getting to a point that his assassination is coming.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because it's an agenda they're perpetrating on the media and the news. Example, Madonna is a client of Mercedes, Ben Mercedes.
Mm-hmm.
He has her go on public TV and say, oh, someone should, I thought so many times of going up and blowing up the White House.
Gotcha.
Okay, they give her that little message. That little message is Hillary's message, okay? Because Hillary sends it to Garagos. and Guerrero gives it to Mercedes, and they give it to
Gotcha.
the
Yeah,
dog.
yeah.
Okay, now
I get all of that.
you're gonna need an internet, so I can show you. If I show you the website, you're just gonna go like, oh.
All right.
All right, thanks for another good one, fellas, and we'll see you next time.